almost every business is impacted in one way or the other. Almost no one is able to avoid this. I'm not aware of any mask manufacturers in Oklahoma that are, just doing great. But for the most part, everybody I talk to is having some impact with their their employees, at least, also with their clients. So what I'm going to talk about today is what the program is today, not what may occur in the future. We see a lot of things on the news about Congress coming back and doing more and doing different things. And what I want you to understand is that we have watched as this program started out in one place and has ended up somewhere completely different after congressional action. So I really can talk about what we have today, and I'll let the other people speculate on what may be coming. But a couple of things before we start. I would encourage you to look for, I do these webinars with the Department of Commerce on a bi-weekly basis. We do them out of our office. You can follow us on Twitter. We advertise them. Feel free to come back for another webinar. If you have a question, come back and hook onto another webinar. If you hear something's changed, come back. We don't release our slides because, frankly, our fear is that someone would send it out 2 days later and it might have changed. So we're asking everybody to just come back for more webinars.
And Larry, just real briefly on that front, you're also going to be joining the Chamber as one of 3 panelists for our Build Northwest lunch next week, which will be on Zoom also. And that is Tuesday the 14th from noon to 1. So that's another opportunity if you do have some more questions after this is over today.
Absolutely. Then my next point is I am encouraging everyone to apply. This funding is for small businesses impacted by the COVID-19. And as I said earlier, that's almost everyone. Don't prejudge your eligibility. Just simply apply. And I'm going to talk more about that later. But my bottom line is Oklahoma businesses deserve to have their share of this funding, and I don't want anybody to miss out on their opportunity. So you may have heard we started out with the economic injury disaster loans. Then Congress passed the Paycheck Protection Program. And so they're 2 separate loans, and I'll talk about both separately. I would encourage a small business to apply for both, to look at both loans. One can be converted to a grant, one cannot. We don't know how long this is going to last. You don't have to take the loan if you don't need it, even if you are approved. Nobody's going to force the money onto you. So if you apply for both, you would naturally want to accept the Payroll Protection Program first because it can be converted to a grant, and then decide after that whether to close on your EIDL loan. An EIDL loan can be closed within 60 days, and it's your choice on whether you close on it or not. As a small business person myself, I've always looked at it as trying to leave my options open. And so that's why I encourage that. The options that are out there that we're going to talk about is obviously the PPP, which everybody's interested in, the EIDL loan, which I just mentioned. Then we're going to touch briefly on SBA Express Bridge loans and SBA debt relief if you already have SBA financing. But first, what everybody's interested in, which of course is a loan program that may be forgiven, and that's the Paycheck Protection Program. It's an expansion of the traditional SBA 7A loan program. It's designed to provide an incentive for small businesses to keep workers on the payroll. If you have already let workers go, if you furloughed employees, if you cut back on hours, you have till the end of the month to bring them back, and if you choose to do so. This Paycheck Protection Program, 75% of the money needs to be used for wages. We will forgive all loans if the employees are kept on the payroll for 8 weeks and the money is used for payroll, rent, mortgage interest, or utilities. You apply for this program through your local financial institution. I would suggest you start with the financial institution you currently use for your business. This program is available at this point through June 30th of 2020. But I would get your application in the queue if you haven't already done so. The program is for any small business with less than 500 employees. And this is really important. This includes sole proprietors, independent contractors, and self-employed persons. It also includes private nonprofits, 501c19s, and some others. But going back to what I said is really important. The example I use is I had someone call me from a hair salon. So they had one employee, they worked themselves in the business, and then they rented out chairs to other stylists, which is very common. Well, they would apply for Paycheck Protection for them and their employee. Their independent contractors who lease space from them would also apply for the Paycheck Protection separately. So the business owner would not count contract employees in their wage calculation because those people would go on their own. And again, this can be anybody who's a sole proprietor and independent contractor and so forth. You can have more than 500 employees if under certain circumstances. Check at SBA.gov if you're in that category, the size standards. And then if your business has any question, you should follow up with us, such as if you're in the hospitality and food industry, but I won't go too deep into that. The interesting aspect, the attractive aspect of this loan is that it will be fully forgiven if the funds are used for payroll costs. So the program is designed to fund 8 weeks of payroll, and the way the loan amount is determined is it's 2.5 times payroll. So essentially, you could pay for 10 weeks of payroll if you just only use it for payroll. The 75% needs to be used for wages. The additional 25% can be used for interest on mortgages, rent, and utilities. The loan payments are deferred for 6 months, and obviously if it converts to a grant, that won't matter. You don't have to have collateral or a personal guarantee, and there are no fees charged with this. Forgiveness is based on the employer maintaining or quickly rehiring employees and maintaining salary levels. In terms of maintaining salary levels, it's my understanding that you can go as low as 75% of previous wages. So if you're paying somebody a certain wage, but you have to cut back their hours, you can cut back to 75% and still receive the forgiveness. Obviously, forgiveness is reduced if your full-time headcount declines or if your salaries and wages decrease too much. It's a 2-year loan, interest rate of 1%. Again, that doesn't really matter because the intent is for it to convert. You can download a copy of the form at sba.gov, or you can simply get it from your local financial institution. But it's kind of an example of the top half of the first page there. It's a pretty simple loan application. Faith-based organizations are also eligible. For further information, visit sba.gov. Any questions on Paycheck Protection while we're here?
And again, you can type those if you've got one in the blank over there. You can also raise your hand, and we can see that and unmute you. Okay, Becky.
Okay, so I saw a question from Melissa Ross saying she's been approved by the financial institution, but isn't sure when the funds will be released. One thing I would say to everyone, I mean, everyone is eager. We've had thousands of applications, obviously. Everyone wants to know when. It's hard to say. This is an unprecedented crisis, and so I can't tell you exactly when your funds will be released. Unfortunately, it's not like a FedEx or an Amazon package where you can enter a tracking number and they'll tell you what day it's going to show up. So I don't have an answer for you, and I apologize for that. But please understand. This is a 50-state crisis, and we're seeing a lot of applicants. So,
Larry, I don't know if you can see the other.
I just pulled up the chat. So
okay, we've got one asking for defining utilities from Todd Rhimes.
Yeah, Todd, I would check with your financial institution on that. I don't have a better definition other than heat, electricity and gas and things like that. My guess is it's broader than that, but and the window in terms of using the funds, one of the interesting things is the period to which the Paycheck Protection Program applies goes back to February. So yeah, start using the money. My guess is phone bills would be a utility cost. Yes.
Hey, look at that! Chuck Cornelson already got his funds today, so he's asking when does the window open to begin using it.
Yeah, and I suggest he can go ahead and the period for the Payroll Protection Program actually goes back through February, so you could probably even pay something. A bill from last week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago. So owner draws count as for the Payroll Protection Program. And I would apply for the payroll protection for both. But I would discuss that with your financial institution. A lot of the questions you're going to have, I'm going to suggest that you talk to your local financial institution, bank, or credit union, because they are very rapidly getting a handle on this due to the volume of applications that they're handling. So,
it looks like we've got some other questions over here. Becky Ivins asks, would rent be included in the PPP 2.5% that would be forgiven?
Yes. But that is the 0.5%. The 2% has to be the 75% has to be used on wages.
Okay. And Becky, does that answer your question fully? I've got you unmuted.
And then for Mike's question, Mike, they will get in contact with you. I cannot tell you when. And I'm sorry for that. The application number in past disasters, you would have been able to enter that to find out the status, but due to the volume, our system was designed for large scale disasters, but that typically would be something like Hurricane Sandy, which might have been 10 or 15 states. And what we're faced with here is a 50-state disaster, including U.S. territories and D.C. So,
Larry, I know that FEMA has had a disaster, like an employee area that they staff out of over on Northwest Expressway, out of the old Service Merchandise or Battle Rock College there in Moore Acres. Will you guys be doing any operations out of that facility?
We will not. We do not have the staff. Normally, again, in a natural disaster, I've worked a number of tornadoes in Oklahoma, obviously, and some flooding. And normally we'll open up offices, but with this, we simply do not have the staff. So I have not heard anything about local offices. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the EIDL. The EIDL provides, and I mentioned this to you, you can get up to $10,000 of economic relief pretty quick. Basically, that's $1,000 per employee. So if you're the only employee, the best you're going to do is $1,000 off of that. But idle loans go up to $2 million. They're 3.75% interest rate. The way the $10,000 up to $10,000 can be rolled over into the PPP is that when you apply for the Payroll Protection Program, you can list on there that one of the expenses you want to use it for is the advance on the idle loan, and you can roll that or refinance that into your PPP, and that will get that converted to a grant if it's used appropriately. So you can apply for that up to $10,000. I know of some businesses that have already got their grant. The rest of them are supposed to be going out. The advance are supposed to be going out today and tomorrow if you've already applied. The idea is to try to get funding into the hands of small businesses who desperately need it. It will not have to be repaid if it's used under the guidelines of the PPP. And you apply for that directly with SBA.gov. The PPP is applied for through your local financial institution. Idle loans come directly from SBA. These loans are for working capital, can pay almost any operating expense, fixed debt payments, payroll, accounts payable. Obviously, you really want payroll under the PPP, so it's becomes a grant. It can be forgiven. Idle loans cannot be used to replace lost profits. They're really for operating expenses. Almost all small businesses are eligible, and all businesses are affected by the disaster, so almost everybody can apply and should apply. Again, we've been doing these loans for years and years, involved with natural disasters, so we're pretty good at them. And I think they should get turned around pretty quick. And they go up to $2 million. Your loan officer will work with you based on actual economic injury and what your company's financial needs are. So only for small business. I would suggest you go ahead and apply. I wouldn't get too wrapped up in what the credit history is, and you have to have the ability to repay the loan. So, I said earlier the interest rate is 3.75, 2.75 if you're a nonprofit, up to 30 years. No fees, no points, no closing costs. The deferment on this is 12 months, so you won't have to make a payment for a year. If you currently, well, anybody have any questions on the idle loans? Let's go ahead and, if anybody has any questions.
Looks like there were quite a few questions over here. What's the $10,000 connection between the PPP and the EIDL? How does it work with part-time employees, and what makes up the cost of business?
Okay, so in regards to the PPP, most of those are questions for your financial institution. I'm trying to see where those questions are.
It's in the question and answer part.
Okay, got it. Okay, so let's see, I answered through, Becky had a question about making changes to your application, yes, that can be done. For the PPP, you would contact your financial institution. For the EIDL loan, when the loan officer contacts you, you will be able to do that. It is not a deal where you have to be perfect the first time. Mike had a question about your secondary income. I mean, it's open to contract employees, so I would go ahead and apply. So, for instance, I work for the SBA. I also have a small business on the side. I'm not applying, but if I was a sports official, I probably would, if you can demonstrate your income off of your 1099s or off of your Schedule C from your tax return. Independent contractors are eligible to apply for the payroll protection starting tomorrow. So hope that answers that question. Becky asks, how does it work with part-time employees? I don't know the answer to that. I don't have a good grasp on that. In terms of payroll protection, I would check with your financial institution. I know it's fundamentally trying to protect full-time jobs, but I don't want to get too deep into that. The $10,000 connection between the Payroll Protection Act, Becky asked, what's the connection between that and EIDL? The connection is you apply to SBA for the $10,000 advance, and then you can roll that over into payroll protection when that loan is approved. And the idea there is we're trying to get the money to you as soon as possible. So they're pretty specific, Becky, on what is the cost of business. And I can't really go into detail on that here, but look at SBA.gov and they should have some clarification there. In terms of the PPP, I'd check with your financial institution. Okay, so the question from AR is kind of using my hair salon example. Owner and operator of a business, you can apply for yourself. Like for instance, an LLC, you may take a draw from the business. That counts for payroll protection, so go ahead and apply for payroll protection. All your vendors also need to apply individually for payroll protection program. So you should be eligible for both. Okay. Let's see. Looking in the chat. Can EIDL loans be used to refinance existing debt? And the answer to that is no. That was a question from Todd. Okay. All right, let's move on. If you already have an SBA loan through an express lender, you can seek a bridge loan. Since they already have your information, they can turn that around pretty quick. Again, this is in a very specific circumstance where you already have an express loan, and that allows you to get through the loss of revenue. Talk with your financial institution about that. That's up to $25,000 rather quickly and can be repaid in full or part by proceeds from the EIDL loan. If you have an existing SBA loan or disaster loan, the SBA is automatically paying principal, interest, and fees of current 7A, 504, and microloans for 6 months. So that's a pretty good deal if you already have an SBA loan. And if it was issued prior to September 27th of this year, if you get a loan in the interim here, they will automatically also pay the principal, interest, and fees. The only thing you'd have to do is stop your automatic payments if you have them in place at this point. I suggest you speak with your financial institution about that. And this also applies the deferral. If you were in regular servicing status on a disaster loan, the SBA is deferring that. So if you need help, you can get help at no cost to you via the Oklahoma Small Business Development Centers, the SCORE Counseling Service, and the Women's Business Center. And I put the links there, but you can Google those. I have seen TV commercials of people offering to help people do their PPP application for a fee. I don't really think you need to pay a fee for that. And I was on a call with a banker today that says check with your financial institution. If you have to have accounting help or legal help, the bank may pay that for you as an agent fee through the bank. So check with your financial institution. I do not believe anybody needs to pay someone to help them do this. And along those lines, I caution everyone to be very careful about fraud. There's no fee to apply for the Paycheck Protection Program, and no one should ask you for one. The government doesn't come to you and ask you to give them a gift card or anything like that. So be very aware. And FEMA is reminding people to avoid any requests for money or personal information. So, and certainly no one needs to do anything to receive their check, their $1,200. Check with your tax preparer, make sure you get the employee retention credit. You can also look at irs.gov coronavirus. This is my contact information. I'm going to leave it up here while I take more questions. And let's see. S Corp. Yeah, I think somebody answered that. S Corps are eligible. I know that for a fact. So might check with the financial institution on that. Okay, this is a good question from Denise. How long does your business have to be in business? Apply. The calculation on payroll is determined either based on your choice, last year's payroll amount, or the first 4 months of this year. So as long as you were in business, there's a date, but I don't remember it off the top of my head. But as long as you were in business before like the end of February or something like that, you should be fine. But you should definitely apply. 11/2019 is plenty of time. So go ahead and apply. On EIDL, the 60 days is after you're approved. I believe you have 60 days to decide what to ask them to fund the loan. So, and then you could decide. So, say that I raise and train foundation corridor horses, and I'm not applying. But if I did, I could apply for the EIDL loan, and then they approve me, say, for $25,000. And but I decide, I'm not sure I really want to get in debt again or whatever, and so I'm going to hold off. And I'd put a tickler in my calendar saying, okay, remember you got to get back with SBA, and then you could do that. And if everything gets better, hey, great, I don't have to do it. But if it doesn't, then I have that in my back pocket. So Becky has a question about full-time equivalent employees. Becky, I can't answer that. I'm sorry. You may have to reach out to me separately, and I'll track that down for you. I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head. And they've advised us to try to not get into something that might come back and haunt us. We had a employee who from another state who said probably too much on the conference call, so I have to be careful. Melissa asked 60 days from when? 60 days from when the loan is approved. So again, go ahead and apply. Becky asked a really good question. Create a new employee. It's your choice whether you use last year's salaries or the first 4 months of this year's salary. So that's up to you. Work with your financial institution on which one's going to work best for you. Okay. So any other questions? Have I answered everybody's question? I know there are 4 questions that I think I've already answered.
Todd had another one over in the chat. He's been told business owners cannot take any dividends for the rest of the year if they take the PPP loan. Is that true?
I'm not aware of that. I have not heard that, but I also can't tell you that that's not true, but I sure haven't heard anything on that. That's interesting. I'll look into that, but I don't know the answer, but I haven't heard anything like that.
If you get the $10,000 grant.
Up to 10,000, yes.
Okay, to get that, you do it through applying for the EIDL, is that correct?
Yes.
If you get that, does that, how does that show up on your tax filing and what you owe in the future?
So according to Treasury and the IRS, you will not be taxed on the forgiven loan amount. So if I receive $25,000 in Payroll Protection Program, I use all of it on employees and utilities, and that debt is forgiven. It is our understanding that that will not be taxable income, which is a pretty good deal.
And the way that we will show that we use the money for that purpose will be when we file our 2020 taxes. Is that correct?
No, I think you'll show it in some process with your financial institution. It's part of the loan.
Okay. We're going to unmute everybody for a moment here, just so that if
we're going to sing.
if anybody has questions that we've not gotten to so far, we would allow for that. So if I can figure out where to do that.
Okay, so Todd just asked a question about the 75% payroll. Todd, I don't think there's any way you cannot use that for payroll, because remember, these loans are retroactive. So if you paid payroll for the last 2 weeks and you apply today, you can count the last 2 weeks of payroll toward that 75%. So no, you don't have to give bonuses. You can just go back and I don't have the date in front of me, but it's in February sometime when the loan period opened up, even though the program didn't exist at that point.
Or I guess what I'll say is, if you've got a question, do the little hand raise thing so that we can unmute you.
Okay, Mike asked a question about the S-Corps. You apply for the PPP, apply for the EIDL. S-Corps are handled within that. It's kind of along the lines of the draw on an LLC. They recognize that you have other means of being paid, and this program is built to accommodate that.
So it looks like Melissa Ross and Becky Ivins each have questions. Melissa, I think I've unmuted you. Do you want to ask that?
Yes, I had just typed mine in like a few minutes ago for clarity. So for 60 days from the PPP approval to decide to apply for the EIDL?
No, the idle, so you're gonna want the PPP, okay? You're
Okay,
gonna
I've already
want,
gotten approved for that, but
okay, you want that. My point was, and you're gonna use it, right? Because it's
Yes.
forgivable. So my point was, if you have a concern, and I do, if you have a concern that this might extend longer than you can really handle on your own, I suggest you go ahead and apply for the EIDL. And then when that's approved, you ask your loan officer, well, I don't want the money yet, but when do I have to tell you, and they should give you a date. Well, you have to let us know by, I don't know, say July 1st. Let
okay,
us
so
know
we can apply for the EIDL even after we've gotten the PPP. We can
Yes.
still apply for EIDL, and then it's 60 days from applying to EIDL where we can decide, yes, we want to do it, or no, we changed our mind. Is
Right.
that correct?
Ask, you'll have a loan officer that you can work with and ask these questions to. But my point is, I don't want to be,
I just wanted to make sure I had the order
Yeah.
right and the right
Yeah.
loan thing.
So
right.
the PPP is definitely what you want first, because it's forgivable. It's a low interest rate anyway, 1%, but mainly it's forgivable. The EIDL is 3.75% and not forgivable. You have to pay that back. But the way I look at it is, it's nice to have that, in your back pocket, kind of,
Yes.
not play all your cards, and you can talk to your loan
Backup
officer
plan.
about that. So, but that's my suggestion.
Okay, thank you.
Chuck had a question about owner draws on his application. Talk to your financial, if you're talking about the PPP, talk to your financial institution, see what they say about that. That was Chuck's question.
If a lot of the questions have been about the PPP and you're supposed to ask the lender, but if you've got questions about the EIDL, that's you've filled it out and submitted to SBA, but you're now thinking, well, maybe I didn't give a complete enough answer, or I gave the wrong answer, but it's somewhere in the wherever it goes when it's submitted to SBA. Kind of what is that process? What kind of timing should we see in? Do we go ahead and try to correct it right now, or do we let it just go through like it was?
I would let it go for now. I can't tell you when you're going to get contacted on the EIDL. Usually it's a relatively short period of time, say in the event of a tornado or a flood or something like that, it's pretty quick. However, we're facing unprecedented volume, historical volume. So, but it's not, you don't have to be perfect the first time. You've made your application. The loan officer is going to get in contact with you. It's a real person. You're going to talk about what you need. You'll have a chance to say, I didn't include this on my application. Can we amend it? And they'll let you do that.
If the whatever information you may be left out or categorized wrong causes your application to be rejected, do you have an opportunity to appeal that? Or
you have an opportunity to fix that. They shouldn't just reject you out of hand.
Okay.
I don't think.
All right. Do we have any other questions for anybody?
I hope I got everyone. I certainly appreciate. Becky, you had a question?
Yeah, how much do I qualify for, and how much will be forgiven of the EIDL?
Okay, nothing's going to be forgiven on the EIDL except for the initial up to $10,000. Okay?
Is that the same $10,000 as the PPP?
The way it's forgiven is it gets rolled over into the PPP. Okay, so the PPP is your payroll times 2.5, and the 10,000 would come out of that. The reason they're doing it via the EIDL is so that we can get the money to you quicker. But other than that up to $10,000 that you would use for payroll and utilities and stuff, all the rest of the money you borrow through the EIDL, if you choose to do so, will be a loan that you would have to repay. And in terms of, you don't have to know up front on any of this how much you qualify for. I had a lot of concern with people saying, well, I'm concerned that how much do I ask for? Well, you don't have to ask for anything. You and your loan officer are going to work out what the program can do for you, what your needs are. And one of the unique features of the EIDL is it's based on a fixed time period, like say trying to get you through the next 2 months. And then if this extends further, you can always go back. So, and the period to apply for EIDL loans is through December. So,
On the EIDL loan, we had a question from Todd about how could you check the status of it, that he applied 10 days ago and hadn't heard anything.
Todd, at this point now, I hesitate to ask this, but when did you apply using the online form initially, or the uploaded forms, or the 5-page most recent form?
He says online.
Okay. You may want to go back and reapply using the 5-page form just to be sure.
The 5-page form,
The
hard
current
copy?
version. I would go back on the current version and apply using that. For one thing, it has the checkbox for the 10,000 advance.
If you get, like, who will you hear from if you get approved for the EIDL? Will it come
SBA.
directly from the SBA?
Yes, from the SBA disaster office.
Okay, will it be sent to your office? Will it come via email? Like, if we're not at our office all the time, is it going to come through snail mail, or what's that going to look like?
They should reach out to you via phone.
Phone, okay. And is that are you going to need to end up taking that and working with the local financial institution on that, or it's just
No, that'll be direct with SBA.
Okay. So you told him that if he'd already submitted, that he should submit again.
I would. That's just kind of that. And Todd, you might get in contact with me, larry.weatherford@sba.gov. Give me a phone number and we can talk. But that would be my suggestion today.
Does anybody else have any other questions? Becky, is your hand still up?
Yeah.
Yes, my hand's up.
Okay, well, you're live, so ask your question.
My lender had us go through Cabbage for the PPP loan, but they do not answer their phone. You can't get to them to correct an application. Could I swap lenders on the PPP?
That would be a question for your financial institution.
Well, my financial institution doesn't answer the phone.
Well, I'm sorry. I don't know the answer to that.
Should she apply with a different lender then? If the one that
I can't answer that. I really don't know and I'm sorry. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if that would hold things up. You might try another financial institution and ask them that question. If they tell you, yeah, come on, go ahead. But I don't know the answer to it.
All right. Well, hearing no other questions, Larry, is there any final words of advice
Yeah.
that you would give us?
Again, let me reiterate, and I can't emphasize this enough. Oklahoma businesses are hurting. We're seeing unprecedented declines in business income, and Oklahoma counts on small business. That's our economy. I mean, that through oil price ups and downs and things like that, it's small business that carries us through. And so my final word to you is please go ahead and apply, get into the system, be persistent, be patient as much as possible, and work with your local financial institutions to try to bring this money into Oklahoma to make sure that when this is over, we have as many small businesses as we started with. And please continue to check into this. We'll be doing more webinars in various places. You can follow us on Twitter for a list of those. And don't stop asking your questions.
So Larry, we are delighted that you'll be part of our 3-person panel. We'll have Larry from the SBA, and then an accountant and an HR person, all with us to help give short overview, but then answer your question and answer for the Build Northwest session that we will have next Tuesday. It is the regular Build Northwest meeting time at noon. It's from noon to 1. Only this time it's wherever you are, and bring your own lunch. If you want to do Black Bear Diner, I know that they are doing some takeout options. So I'm sure they would love to have that order. With that, we have preserved this as a recording, and you'll be able to find that online on our website later, or if you'd like to share it with anyone else. We do have a page with different resources on the Chamber's website. In the upper right kind of information bar, you'll see the link to it. It says COVID-19 resources. So I would encourage you to go on there. I know we've got links to information and Q&A about the PPP, about the tax credits, about the EIDL loans, about the requirements for the Paid Sick Leave and Family and Medical Leave Act that these programs are helping to fund, and various other things. So I encourage you to use that resource and share it with others. If you guys know of something that you want more information on, or someone that you'd like to have come and share with us in the future, please reach out and send me an email or a text and let me know, and we'll try to get that set up and scheduled. We want to really thank Larry for spending time with us today and helping us to become more informed on that, and just, we know you guys have been so swamped, and so we're really grateful to have this opportunity. And with that, we want to say thanks to everybody. I hope you guys are all staying safe, and you know, the essential workers are getting their work done, and that everybody is staying healthy, and have a great Easter. Thank you.